Heading into the 2025 edition of the IPL, there's a lot of uncertainty that is surrounding a lot of the teams, and the main reason for that is that it has been confirmed that in 2025 you will be having a mega auction, which means that teams will have to be rebuilding from scratch pretty much once again, as happens every 3 years. However, what we're also now getting to hear is that a lot of teams are trying to ensure that the number of players retained can increase. You remember the last time a mega auction was done, teams were allowed to retain 4 players, and that's pretty much the extent of it, which means that more often than not, what tends to happen is that there'll be a lot of churn and that there is no necessary, let's say, identification that fans can have with players. There'll be a lot of players who will switch sides, and even though franchises will try their best to retain certain players, sometimes it becomes a little harder said than done. However, a lot of franchises are now going to try and push to ensure that there are more retentions, even if the method of those retentions isn't exactly very clear at this point in time. Confused? Don't worry, there's no need to be. We'll explain in this video what exactly it is the franchises are, let's say, agreeing or disagreeing upon. And one of the things that came as a little bit of surprise was that there was supposed to be a meeting between all of the franchise owners on April 16, which then ended up getting postponed. Now, there's no major reasoning as such. It's not down to disagreements or anything of the sort. It's just that there has been so much going on with the IPL that not all teams were going to be able to meet that on that particular day, and therefore the meeting has been postponed. As of now, there is no new date set for the meeting. But what would have been on the agenda if that meeting went through? Well, we'd already previously discussed that certain teams were in fact of favor of increasing the number of retentions, but now there has been a minor difference that's cropped up as to the method of retention that certain teams prefer. How so is that the case? Well, first off, there are certain teams, most teams in fact, who want that franchises will be able to retain up to 8 players in their lineup. Why 8 players? Because they want to ensure that their core is retained and that there is some sense of fan identification among all of those players. However, there are certain teams who want those many retentions, but not for them to be happening in a direct way. What they're saying is that you allow every single team to retain 1 player and then give them 7 RTM cards. Now, RTM cards, or right to match cards, are something that have been used in the past, but less so recently in the future. And the other thing they want, and this is something most teams are in agreement in, is that they want the pay purse or the player purse to be hiked up from the current 90 crores and make it 100 crores. That are the major, let's say, demands or the things that would have been on the agenda. Now, the player purse thing, no surprise when you consider that, let's say, teams are making more and more money now. They're getting good chunks of money from the broadcast rights. But it's these 2 pointers that really, let's say, draw a lot of attention. You can say that maybe you'd allow teams 8 player retentions, and that would make team building a lot easier, because if every team can retain 8 players, well, then filling out the rest of the squad shouldn't be that much of an issue. However, some are saying that, listen, retain only 1 player and then give them 7 RTMs. Now, what RTMs would do, of course, is that it would let, let's say, franchises match the winning bid of any particular franchise and therefore retain the player. Now, what can happen, the flip side to this is that they may end up buying players back on inflated prices. But the argument from teams that are advocating this is that this way there can be no under the table negotiating to happen, because then what will happen is everything is taking place televised. They'll have to match the actual fee that has come up. So that is really the thought process when it comes to this. Now, personally, I'm in full agreement with whichever, let's say, of these 2 solutions they end up reaching, because I have long been against the idea of the mega auction in general. You should not be resetting teams every 3 years. It just makes no sense from a fan perspective, because fans do eventually relate to even individual players. So you're very used to seeing certain players in certain jerseys, and then for that to change due to no fault of the franchise or the player just seems like a little weird thing to do. You need to be ensuring that teams have incentive to build teams, and if the best way to do that would be to do away with the concept of the mega option. But this is the next best option, where you allow them to retain way more players than just say 3-4. I would say you allow them to retain up to 12 players, so that then the core is intact. As I said, not a fan of the mega auction. That's just my personal opinion though. But I think either of these is a start. What's good to see is that most franchises seem to be thinking along the same lines and saying, listen, it makes more sense to build a team long term rather than look to rip up the plans and start from scratch every 3 seasons. But what are your thoughts on the matter? Do you agree with the teams? Disagree? Do you want less retentions, more retentions? Let us know all of that in the comments below, and don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to the channel, tap that bell icon, follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. Don't forget to download the Sports the Cap, and if you're already on the channel, go ahead, check out some other videos we've done as well. For now, from my side though, it is goodbye.